Ethan was driving through a storm when his GPS suddenly died, leaving him blind on a deserted mountain highway. A truck nearly collided with him, forcing him to take the first side road he saw, Oliver Road. It was narrow, covered by trees, strangely quiet. His GPS came back for a moment, showing only a gray road with no towns nearby. Soon the asphalt turned to dirt. A scarecrow stood in the middle of the road, rotting and misplaced. As Ethan passed it, the head lifted slightly, though there was no wind. His stomach tightened. Minutes later, he saw a town appear out of nowhere. Welcome to Hollow Creek. Population 311, small houses lined the street. People stood outside, a woman sweeping, a man on a bench. Children near a pump, but none of them moved or looked at him. Their stillness felt wrong. In the diner, a pale-eyed man appeared and said calmly, "You arrived just in time." Ethan asked for directions, but the man replied, "There is no road out. Not now." When Ethan tried to leave, he saw all the townspeople standing in a line, staring at him. His car was scratched, muddy, damaged as if dragged through the woods. The engine refused to start. The sun began setting unnaturally fast, dropping like a stone. From the woods behind the town came a deep, rattling growl. The dynaman shouted, "Run! Before the woods know you're here." And Ethan ran as the night swallowed Hollow Creek. Ethan found shelter in an old building labeled Hollow Creek Inn. Inside, a woman with an old-fashioned dress handed him a ledger. "Sign your name," she said. "The town needs to know who's staying." He signed reluctantly. She warned him, "Do not open the door for anyone. Do not look out the window. Do not answer voices that aren't yours." In his room, the night outside grew violent. The woods hissed and groaned, as if something large was moving through them. Then tap, tap, someone knocked on his door. A child's voice whispered, "Please let me in. I'm lost." Ethan froze. The innkeeper's warning repeated in his mind. He asked who it was. The voice paused, then answered in a tone too deep for a child. "I came the same way you did." The doorknob twisted violently. Something pulled from the other side, growling, "Let me in." Ethan held the knob with all his strength until the thing finally walked away. Hours later, he nearly fell asleep when a man's voice called from outside his window. "Welcome, Ethan Miller." Hearing his full name chilled him. The innkeeper's voice whispered through the darkness, "Do not look. They know you now." Ethan trembled. "What happens tomorrow?" he whispered. Her quiet reply, "Tomorrow you learn the rules of Hollow Creek." Ethan didn't sleep the whole night. By sunrise, the woods had gone silent again, as if nothing had happened. The inn felt colder in daylight, its walls thin and strange, like the building itself was listening. He left room 7 and went downstairs. The innkeeper was already waiting, standing perfectly still behind the counter. "You made it through the first night," she said. "Not everyone does." Ethan swallowed. "What's happening here? Why can't I leave?" She opened the old ledger, turning to a section filled with dozens of names. Some were crossed out, some had dates beside them. Some had nothing at all. "These are the people who came before you," she said, "and the ones who never left." Ethan's skin crawled. "Why not?" She finally looked him in the eyes. "Hollow Creek keeps who it wants." Ethan shook his head. "No, I'm leaving today." "You can try," she said softly, "but you must know the rules first." She handed him a folded yellowed paper. On it were 4 written lines. 1. Don't go near the woods after sunset. 2. Don't follow anyone who calls your name. 3. Never trust someone you didn't see in daylight. 4. If you see your own reflection smile at you, run. Ethan stared at the paper. "This is insane. It's survival," she replied. "Break even one rule, and the woods will take you." Before Ethan could speak again, the inn door creaked open. The pale-eyed man from the diner stepped in. "It's time," he said simply. "For what?" Ethan asked. "For the town to meet you properly." Ethan backed away. "I'm not going anywhere." The man didn't argue. He only said, "You can't avoid it." When a newcomer arrives, Hollow Creek changes. Outside, the townspeople gathered slowly, forming a silent circle in the square. As Ethan approached the window, every head snapped upward to stare at him at once. They whispered his name in one voice. Ethan, Ethan, Ethan. He stumbled back, horrified. The innkeeper whispered urgently, "Remember the rules. Today the town watches. Tonight the woods hunt." Ethan felt the paper tremble in his hand as something moved at the tree line, tall, dark shapes shifting between the trees. The innkeeper's voice dropped to a whisper. "Before night comes, you must learn who here is real, and who is waiting to take your place." Ethan stepped away from the window, heart racing as the entire town whispered his name together. The innkeeper grabbed his arm, her voice shaking. "They've started the choosing." "The what?" Ethan asked, but she was already pulling him toward the back of the inn. "The town decides what you will become. Everyone who comes here is given a role." Her eyes were dark, frightened. "Some become residents and watchers, and some get taken by the woods." Before Ethan could reply, the front door creaked open. The pale-eyed diner man stepped inside. "It's time. The town is ready to meet him." "I'm not meeting anyone," Ethan snapped. "I'm leaving today." The man gave a sad smile. "You can't leave. Not until Hollow Creek is finished with you." Outside, the townspeople reorganized themselves into a perfect circle in the square. They were silent, staring straight at the inn, as if waiting for Ethan to appear. Then, a girl in a faded white dress walked into the circle. Ethan hadn't seen her before. Pale face, dark eyes, bare feet. She stared at the inn window with a slow, unnatural smile. The innkeeper whispered sharply, "She wasn't here yesterday. She doesn't belong." The girl lifted her hand and pointed straight at Ethan through the window. Immediately, the townspeople began chanting in perfect rhythm. "A roll, a roll, a roll." Ethan stumbled back. "What do they want from me?" "The town is searching for a missing place," the innkeeper said. "Someone who disappeared. Someone Hollow Creek wants back." "And it wants Emmy to replace them?" Ethan cried. The innkeeper nodded weakly. "Yes." Suddenly, the back door of the inn creaked open slightly. No wind, no footsteps. Just a slow, unnatural movement. Then a voice drifted inside, soft, familiar. "Ethan, come outside, I need you." Ethan froze. It was his mother's voice. But she was hours away in Denver. "That's not my mom," Ethan whispered. The voice repeated, warmer, "Come out, sweetheart." The innkeeper hissed, "Don't answer it. They mimic voices. They'll say anything to trick you." The voice suddenly dropped deep and hollow. "Open the door." The diner man rushed and slammed it shut. Ethan backed away, terrified. His phone, dead since yesterday, buzzed in his pocket. He slowly pulled it out. A single message glowed on the cracked screen. "You belong to US now." Ethan dropped the phone. Outside, the chanting grew louder. The little girl in the white dress stepped closer to the inn, and Ethan noticed her feet left no shadow. The innkeeper whispered, "She's one of them. From the woods." A heavy knock shook the front door. Boom, boom. Dew fell from the ceiling. The lights flickered violently. The diner man stepped back, voice tight. "They're calling you out early." "Who is?" Ethan shouted. "The ones that live in the trees," the man whispered. "The ones who lost someone." The knocking stopped suddenly. A silence colder than night filled the room. Then a whisper seeped through the wood of the door, slow, calm, chilling. "Ethan, your role is ready." Ethan's voice cracked. "What role?" The answer came almost gently. "Replacement." The word replacement echoed in Ethan's mind like a cold blade. The innkeeper opened the old ledger and pointed to a single name written on an empty page. Thomas Reed. Missing Ethan's throat tightened. "So I'm supposed to replace him?" "Why?" She answered softly. "When someone disappears into the woods, Hollow Creek chooses a newcomer to take their place." "You arrived right after Thomas vanished." The diner man added, "He tried to escape." "No one escapes the woods." Before Ethan could argue, the bell outside rang again. A deep, metallic sound. The townspeople shifted instantly, forming two straight lines along the street, leaving a narrow path leading directly to the forest. At the end of that path stood the little girl in the white dress. She smiled at Ethan, slow and unnatural. "That girl," Ethan whispered. "Who is she?" The innkeeper's voice trembled. "She wasn't here yesterday. She only appears when the woods want someone. She led Thomas Reed into the forest. And now she's here for you." Ethan stepped back. "I'm not following her." "If you don't," the diner man warned, "the woods will come inside to take you. They don't like waiting." At that moment, Ethan's dead phone suddenly lit up in his pocket. He pulled it out slowly. A single message glowed on the screen. "You will take his place." His blood ran cold. Then, a heavy bang shook the inn's front door. Boom! Boom! Something massive was striking it from outside. The hinges creaked. Dust fell from the ceiling. The townspeople outside began whispering in unison, their voices rising. "A roll! A roll! A roll!" The girl in white raised her hand, pointing directly at Ethan. The innkeeper grabbed him. "Listen carefully. If you step outside, do not let her touch you. And whatever you hear, do not look back once you're on that path." "What happens if I do?" Ethan choked out. "You'll suffer Thomas Reed's fate," she whispered. Another violent slam hit the door, this time splitting the wood. The diner man shouted, "They're coming! You have no choice." Ethan stared at the broken door, then at the waiting crowd, then at the dark line of trees beyond. The girl smiled wider. His heart pounded. With no other option left, Ethan stepped forward. And the moment he crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind him, cutting him off from the inn and from any hope of returning. The moment Ethan stepped outside, the cold air hit him like a warning. The door of the inn slammed shut behind him with a final, echoing thud. The townspeople didn't move. They simply turned their heads toward him, every neck twisting in the same slow, unnatural motion. Their eyes were blank, their expressions empty, like masks carved from pale wax. At the end of the path, the girl in the white dress still waited. She smiled as if she'd been smiling for years. Ethan forced himself to walk forward. The chanting faded into silence as he approached the town's edge. Only the crunch of his footsteps on dirt broke the stillness. When he reached the girl, she tilted her head, her long black hair falling over one shoulder. "You came," she said softly. Her voice was wrong, too calm, too smooth, like a recording played at half speed. "Where are we going?" Ethan asked, keeping his distance. "To where Thomas went," she replied. "And where you must go." "I'm not replacing anyone," Ethan muttered. The girl only smiled wider. "Everyone replaces someone here." She turned and walked toward the tree line. Ethan followed, though every instinct screamed at him to run the other way. As soon as he crossed into the forest, the air changed. The temperature dropped sharply. The light dimmed, even though it was still daytime. The trees were twisted, their branches stretching like skeletal arms. A whisper drifted through the leaves. "Ethan," he froze. The voice sounded like his father's. The girl stopped walking. "Don't listen," she said without turning. "They try to distract you." Ethan swallowed hard. "That's not real?" She shook her head. "Nothing in here is real except me." He wasn't sure if that made things better or worse. They walked deeper until he noticed something strange. The forest floor had shallow footprints, too large for the girl, too fresh to be old, and too many to belong to one person. "Thomas?" Ethan guessed. "No," the girl replied. "Thomas only walked here once. These belong to the others who tried to escape." Ethan exhaled shakily. "How many?" The girl didn't answer. She just pointed ahead. A clearing opened up slowly, revealing a broken wooden structure like a watchtower collapsed into the earth. Its beams were cracked, clawed, and covered in deep gouges. In the center stood a simple wooden post with a rope tied around it. Ethan's heart pounded. "What happened here?" The girl stepped closer, touching the rope. "Thomas was brought here on the last night. He begged the woods to let him go." "And did they?" Ethan whispered. The girl turned to him slowly. Her smile faded. Her eyes darkened. "No one leaves the woods once they enter." A breeze passed through the clearing, cold, unnatural. The trees shook violently, though nothing touched them. Then a voice echoed through the clearing, low, broken, desperate. "Help! Someone! Help me. Ethan jumped back. That sounded human. The girl shook her head. It's not. The voice came again, closer this time. Please, I'm still here. Ethan backed away. Who is that? The girl stepped toward him, blocking his path. That is what's left of Thomas Reed, she whispered. And if you follow that voice, you will become the next. Ethan's breath caught. I'm not replacing him. The girl studied him quietly, then said something that sent a chill through his soul. You were chosen because you are like him, lost, alone, running from something. Ethan felt like she'd read his mind. Before he could respond, the forest erupted with a loud crack, something massive moving through the trees. The girl's expression hardened. They sensed you. We must go. Ethan shook his head. Where? To the boundary, she said. If you reach it before they do, you may survive. May? Ethan asked, but she didn't answer. She just whispered urgently, Run. Ethan hesitated for a single second too long. Something roared from the darkness of the trees, an inhuman sound that split the air like tearing metal. The girl grabbed his arm with surprising strength. Run now! And Ethan ran as the shadows behind him came alive. Ethan sprinted through the twisted forest, branches whipping his arms, roots grabbing at his feet like hands. Behind him, something enormous crashed through the trees, too heavy to be human, too fast to be an animal. The girl in white ran ahead without effort, floating more than stepping. Hurry, she urged. They're close, Ethan gasped for breath. What are they? The woods, she answered simply. They're awake. A deep roar echoed behind them, shaking the ground. Ethan didn't dare look back. At last, the trees thinned. A faint silver glow appeared in the distance, shimmering like moonlight trapped in the air. There! The girl pointed. The boundary. Ethan's hope flared. So I can escape? Her expression didn't change. You can try. They reached the glowing wall, an invisible curtain of rippling light stretching between two dead trees. Ethan stepped closer and felt the air hum with strange energy. What is this? He whispered. The edge of Hollow Creek, the girl said. Everyone who tries to leave finds this place. Ethan leaned closer. His reflection flickered faintly in the shimmering surface, distorted, stretched, smiling, though he wasn't smiling. He stepped back quickly. Before he could speak, something behind him growled, a low, guttural vibration that shook the leaves. They're here, the girl warned. Ethan turned to her. You said if I reached the boundary, I might survive. So what do I do now? She looked at him with those dark, ancient eyes. You walk through. Ethan hesitated. What about you? I can't leave, she replied. I was never alive to begin with. A chill sank into his bones. The roar grew louder, branches splitting as something massive pushed through the forest. He didn't have time to think. Ethan placed his hand against the boundary. It burned cold and hot at the same time. The air screamed. His vision blurred. Behind him, the trees exploded open. A towering shadow burst through tall, twisted limbs, glowing eyes, a shape that shifted like smoke and bone. The girl whispered, Go, Ethan. He pushed harder. For a second, he felt the barrier bend beneath his hand, thin as ice about to crack, showing faint glimpses of open road and daylight beyond. Then it snapped back like elastic. Ethan was flung to the ground, gasping in pain. It won't let me through, he shouted. The girl shook her head. No, it only lets one through. Thomas Reed. Ethan went pale. Why him? Because he belongs to the woods now, she whispered. And they want you to replace him. The giant shadow lunged from the trees. Ethan scrambled to his feet as its long, clawed arms slammed into the earth where he'd just been. The girl yelled, Run back into the forest. It can't cross the boundary either. Ethan stumbled away from the shimmering wall as the creature roared, shaking the entire clearing. He ran blindly into the darkness. And somewhere behind him, the boundary whispered with a voice that wasn't his. You cannot leave, Ethan.
Ethan stumbled through the trees, lungs burning, legs shaking. The creature's roars faded behind him, but the forest itself felt alive, breathing, shifting, listening. He stopped only when the girl in white appeared again, seemingly materializing between two twisted trunks. "You almost crossed the boundary," she said softly. "Few get that close." Ethan leaned against a tree, gasping. "War one had let me through." Her expression darkened. "Because Hollow Creek cannot lose someone twice." Ethan blinked. "Twice? What does that mean, too?" The girl knelt and brushed aside the dead leaves near her feet. Underneath was a trail-deep grooves, claw marks, torn fabric. "Thomas Reed ran this way," she whispered. "He thought the boundary would free him. It didn't." Ethan swallowed hard. "What happened to him?" The girl lifted her hand and pointed deeper into the woods. Ethan reluctantly followed her gaze. At first, he thought it was a fallen tree. But as he stepped closer, he realized it wasn't wood at all. It was a man. Or what was left of one. A twisted figure lay half-buried in root skin pale, limbs contorted unnaturally, empty sockets staring at nothing. The forest had grown around him, through him, as if claiming him as part of the landscape. Ethan staggered back. "God! Is that—" "Thomas Reed," the girl said. "His body, not his voice." Sam froze. His voice, a whisper, drifted through the trees, broken, desperate. "Help! Please!" Ethan recognized it instantly. It was the same voice he had heard earlier. "He's alive!" Ethan asked, horrified. "No," the girl said. "Just trapped." Hollow Creek doesn't let souls leave. It keeps them. Calling. Luring replacements. Ethan's hand shook. "So I'm next." "You were chosen," she said simply. "The moment you entered the town." Ethan turned to run, but the girl stepped in front of him. "You can't keep running. The woods grow hungry when you run." "Then what do I do?" Ethan snapped. She hesitated, then spoke quietly. "You must face them. The woods want to judge you. They accept you, you'll live as a resident. If they don't—" She glanced toward Thomas's corpse. Ethan understood the rest. A distant howl echoed through the trees, a sound like bending metal mixed with human breath. "They're coming," she whispered. "This time, not for Thomas, but for you." Ethan backed away, heart pounding. "I'm not letting this place decide my life." "You don't have a choice," she replied sadly. "Everyone who enters Hollow Creek must take a place or become part of the woods." "The woods contrite," Ethan said through clenched teeth, "but I'm not dying here." The girl tilted her head. "Then something else will happen." "What?" he demanded. She stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "You'll become a resident. Forever." Ethan shook his head. "No, never." But the girl gave a sorrowful smile. Hollow Creek always gets what it wants. Suddenly, branches cracked behind them closer than before. Shadows moved between the trees, tall and jagged. The girl pointed to a narrow path Ethan hadn't noticed. "Run," she whispered. Before they decide you're ready." Ethan sprinted into the darkness as the whisper of Thomas Reed followed him. "Don't let them choose you. Run while you still can." But Hollow Creek was done waiting.
Ethan sprinted down the narrow path, lungs screaming, heart pounding loud enough to drown out the forest's whispers. But no matter how fast he ran, the woods seemed to shift around him, trees bending, roots crawling across the ground, shadows moving in ways shadows shouldn't, branches snapped behind him. They were close. He burst into another clearing, chest heaving. Moonlight filtered through the canopy, casting trembling beams across the ground. In the center stood a circular arrangement of stones, old, cracked, covered in strange markings. The girl in white appeared at the edge of the clearing, silent as mist. "You found the circle," she said. Ethan stumbled backward. "What is this?" "The place where the woods decide who belongs," she replied. It's where Thomas failed. Ethan looked around desperately. How do I make them let me go? You don't, she said. You stand in the circle and hope they spare you. Ethan laughed bitterly. Hope? That's your plan. It's the only chance you have left. Before he could argue, a sound filled the clearing, deep, slow, rhythmic. Footsteps, heavy, approaching from every direction. The shadows between the trees thickened, merging, forming towering shapes, half human, half tree, their limbs long and twisted like broken branches. Their eyes glowed with cold, hungry light. Ethan backed into the circle without meaning to. Immediately, the earth beneath him vibrated. The girl whispered, "It's starting." One of the towering creatures stepped forward, its voice a guttural rumble. "You entered Hollow Creek?" A second creature spoke from the opposite side. "You crossed our boundary." A third stepped closer, its breath cold and rotten. "You seek escape." Ethan clenched his fists. "I didn't choose to come here." The creatures all responded at once, voices merging into a horrible chorus. "The lost are chosen. The chosen belong." The ground trembled violently. Ethan fell to his knees as the circle lit with faint, ghostly symbols. Suddenly the girl grabbed his arm. "Look at me! If you look at them now, they will take your mind." Ethan forced his eyes on her face. "What do they want to do to me?" "Judge you," she whispered, "to see if you fit Thomas Reed's role." The largest creature approached, towering above Ethan like a living nightmare. "You carry fear." Another leaned down, its breath freezing the air. "You carry loneliness," a third whispered from behind. "You carry guilt." Ethan's stomach dropped. "How do you know that?" "We see what you are," the voices echoed. "Just as we saw Thomas." Images flashed through Ethan's mind, his broken family, the argument he ran away from, the feeling of being unwanted, lost, always escaping problems. The circle glowed brighter. The trees surrounding the clearing bent inward as if listening. Finally, the leader spoke. "You are suitable." Ethan's entire body went cold. "No," he whispered. "No, please. You will take his place," the creature rumbled. Ethan grabbed the girl's hand. "Help me. There has to be a way." She looked at him with deep sadness. "There is one way," she said softly. "But it's worse than becoming a replacement. Tell me." Before she could answer, the creatures let out a thunderous howl. Roots shot out from the ground, wrapping around Ethan's ankles, pulling him down. He screamed, clawing at the soil. "Stop! Let me go!" The girl knelt beside him. "If you stay still, they will make you like Thomas," she whispered. "But if you run again, they will follow you forever." "Which is worse?" Ethan choked. She touched his cheek gently. "That's why Hollow Creek has no escape." The roots tightened, pulling deeper, inch by inch. Ethan screamed. The trees echoed the scream back at him, and the woods whispered with one final judgment. "You are ours." The roots pulled Ethan deeper, the earth tightening around his legs like cold hands determined to claim him. The creatures towered above, their glowing eyes fixed on him with ancient hunger. "You are ours," they repeated, their voices shaking the ground. Ethan clawed at the soil, desperate, frantic. "I'm not Thomas Reed. I'm not replacing anyone." The girl in white knelt beside him again, her face full of sorrow. "You were chosen because you are like him," she whispered. "Lost inside yourself long before you stepped into this place." "I don't care," Ethan gasped. "I want out." The creatures leaned closer. The largest one extended a long, crooked limb, brushing his shoulder. Cold plunged into Ethan's bones, freezing him from inside. Suddenly, the girl grabbed his wrist. "There is another way," she whispered urgently. "A way out?" Ethan's eyes widened. "You said there isn't." "There isn't for most," she said. "But you crossed the boundary's edge. It touched you. It marked you." "What does that mean?" "It means the woods cannot fully claim you unless you accept your place." Ethan shook his head violently. "I'll never accept it." The girl closed her eyes. "Then you must do something Thomas never could." "What? Tell me." "You must deny the town." Ethan froze. "What does that even mean?" "Hollow Creek survives because people obey it," she said. They follow the rules. They stay. They fear. They submit. She leaned closer, whispering, "If you refuse to fear it, refuse to believe it can keep you, the roots will lose their hold." Ethan stared at her, trembling. How am I supposed to not fear this? The girl looked at the dark shapes looming above them. Because none of this is real unless you give it power. The creatures hissed in fury, their shapes trembling like smoke. "Lies! You belong here!" The roots pulled harder. Ethan screamed. "Focus!" The girl yelled. "They can only take you if you believe they can." Hollow Creek feeds on fear. Ethan shut his eyes tightly. He forced himself to breathe slow, steady. "No," he whispered. "I don't belong here." The roots tightened. "I am not Thomas Reed." The ground trembled. "I'm not staying in this town." The air rippled like a struck drum. Finally, Ethan shouted with everything he had, "You can't have me!" A shockwave burst through the clearing. The glowing circle shattered like glass. The creatures stumbled back, their shapes flickering violently. The roots loosened, retreating into the earth with pained screeches. Ethan gasped for air, pulling himself free. The girl stepped back, her expression unreadable. "You did what Thomas couldn't," she whispered. "You rejected the town." The largest creature roared an enraged, broken sound. "He is not ours. He is not ours." The forest trembled. The trees twisted away from Ethan as if repelled by something burning. The boundary in the distance flickered like a dying flame. Ethan stood unsteadily. "So, can I leave?" The girl nodded slowly. "Yes, but you must go now, before the woods remember you again." Ethan didn't wait. He sprinted toward the shimmering boundary. This time the air parted for him, thin and fragile, like a veil being pushed aside. He stepped through. Sunlight hit his face. Warm, normal, real. He stumbled onto an empty road, no town, no forest, just the highway stretching ahead. His phone buzzed. He pulled it out with shaking hands. One notification, GPS signal restored. "Continue on your route." Ethan let out a broken laugh. He turned around. Hollow Creek was gone. No trees, no boundary, no girl in white, just empty land. But then his phone buzzed again. A new notification appeared. "You were supposed to stay." Ethan froze. The reflection on his phone screen smiled at him. He wasn't smiling.